remember thinking about that quote again. Does your content tell people that they are welcome in our fandom, or does our content tell people they are not welcome in our fandom? And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that I have never once had an issue with a change or with a casting decision. For example, this is a silly one, but it's one that comes close to home for me. When they cast Chris Pratt to do the voice of Mario, there are not a lot of Italian characters that either aren't in the Mafia or not named Rocky Balboa in films. I mean, there are some, but not a lot. And to me, it's like, here we have the most Italian of Italian caricatures in Mario. It's me, Mario, right? As an Italian, I love Chris Pratt to death. But as an Italian, I thought it probably would have been a good idea to get an Italian to do the voice of Mario. So, sure. Was I a little irked by it? Yes. But did I go, well, then I'm not going to go see this movie, or I hate this movie, or I want this movie to fail? No. Right? Yeah. Did I take umbrage with it? Yes. I wish they had done it a different way, but the storytellers, the people making this movie, this was their version, and this is what they were going to do. So fine, guess what? There have been other versions of Mario. In the future, there will be more versions of Mario. And sometimes it'll be an Italian actor doing it, and sometimes it won't. And that's okay. It's the same reason I didn't get mad at Quentin Tarantino for Inglourious Basterds for having the audacity to rewrite history. For those of you who may not know your history, a little spoiler alert. Adolf Hitler did not die in a movie theater fire. Just so you know. But Quentin Tarantino wasn't trying to rewrite history. He was telling a story. He was telling his story, a version of his story that looked at history a little bit differently. And in his version of history, Adolf Hitler died in a movie theater fire. Or even if you look at the events of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that's not how it went down. Quentin Tarantino wasn't disrespecting history. He's just an artist telling a story and telling his version of the story. But it's art. He wasn't changing history. He wasn't changing identity. He was just telling a story as an artist. And that's why, to me, whether you're taking, if you're doing Gods of Egypt, and there are very few roles for people of different ethnicities, so why pack that one full of white people? Sure. But it's just them telling a story. Do I take a little bit of umbrage with it? Sure. But was it enough for me to go, well, then I'm not going to see Gods of Egypt? Well, I wish I had. It was terrible. But that's besides the point. And so, when you get to something like Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, which is now his highest audience-rated movie of his entire career, for non-comic book films, it's the highest grossing R-rated film for opening weekend in history. All that kind of stuff. Is Helen Troy traditionally portrayed as a white woman? Yeah. But the lady who played Helen in Troy wasn't white color. It's just that her skin happened to be white. The guy isn't trying to rewrite history. He's just telling one of 5,000 versions of the Odyssey. And in his interpretation, he decided that Helen was going to be played by Lupita Nyong'o. Okay, maybe you like or don't like that decision. That's fair. But I don't understand why we take the major issue with. I'll say actually we got tracking there on my head. Why we take such a major issue to the point we hate the film for doing it. Again, he's not changing history. There are 50,000 other versions of the Odyssey. There's going to be 50,000 more in the coming decades. And in Christopher Nolan's version, he told it that way. And to me, when you look at the history of Hollywood, which has, by Hollywood's own admission, been incredibly racist, and been incredibly holding on to an agenda of exclusion for a century, previous roles that came were only allowed to be white, at least the vast majority of them were only allowed to be white. Why not, if we're retelling some older stories, get rid of that agenda of exclusion and say, we're going to open up the rules to a bunch of different people now. Again, I understand saying I agree with that decision or I disagree with that other decision. Like, I disagree with having Chris Pratt play Mario, but it's not enough for me to go, well, then this filmmaker shouldn't be allowed to tell the version of the story. To me, it always comes back to Is the content I'm making, and I'm sure I fail at this sometimes, maybe a lot, is the content I'm making the type of content that makes everybody feel welcome in our fandom, or is the type of content I'm creating the type of content that tells people they're not welcome here? And I think that's an important question, and one that I hope I'm always asking myself. Anyway, that will wrap up my thoughts for tonight. Now I'm going to get my fire going and hang out here by my pool tonight for a little bit before going to bed. My name's Sean Campia, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
The game lives on. Welcome to Combox. This is the Wagon Wheel. I'm Jared Kimber. This is the show where we answer your questions in the game. On this particular, the way that we do it, I should say, is that you can ask questions on Patreon, podcast, and we are looking live on YouTube, and you can leave a super chat. But the questions we answer first are the ones taken via Patreon, video, and podcast. PJ, who have started from 1998 to 2008? Whose careers changed the most? What would state your favorite film? Whose careers changed the most? Andrew Simons is probably the highest paid cricketer.
If I may, are you a traveler? Or are you lost?
Last
No.
would have been briefly.
A bit of both.
It last
A bit of neither. You have the look of someone on a journey. One with great
Simon
purpose.
is maybe
I am
98,
Maya. Few pay respect to the Jizo statues.
2007.
Those who do are usually travelers,
I would
or
say
those
that
who have
Pixar
lost their
was
way.
probably that period. It
Figuratively
doesn't
or
really make a big
literally?
mark on its
I
own,
find one usually accompanies the other.
but it's
So
simply
you are a
very
traveler who has
quite
lost
the
her
same
way.
as a big star.
Or perhaps you're waiting for someone.
You dodged
Yeah,
my
so he-
question.
I
those
did.
two.
Not long ago, I lost my way. But I found
Doesn't matter
purpose
until you
moving
get
forward.
more famous,
A
you
kindred
know,
spirit.
that come off the back of that.
May I offer a word of advice?
It'd be fascinating to see
Seek out these
what Brian
Jizo
does.
statues.
Yeah.
Make offers to Ojizo-sama. You will be doing me a personal favor. One I will reward.
How will you know I've done as you asked?
Call
Like
it
if the
an
idea still takes
intuition
off,
of our kindred spirits.
Statues actually.
You will find the statues throughout the
Yeah,
land,
we've been writing this
at
book about
crossroads
Colin,
and
and
river
the big thing
crossing.
is, like,
Something tells me you've
who's
already
actually
made
famous
progress.
Colin?
I have. Before you
And
told me
probably
I dodged
told
your
you.
question. But in
But if
truth,
that is
you
the
dodged
problem,
mine.
Free
you're
and
gonna be
astute.
so
You asked if I had lost my way or if I was waiting for someone.
not you're independent.
Ulfricher, my husband, off
But
fighting the
imagine
war
if
like so many
your
of us have
relatives
had to do.
during peak,
He never returned.
Suppose Warner Murally get a huge boost as well.
I'm sorry.
What would state
it's
of
never
like?
easy.
We lose
I
some
wonder
of ourselves
if
in the process, I think. Take a
I
small
suppose
token for your
part of me
efforts.
wonders if
and
actually
your
was done
company.
there,
Thank you.
Come back after
would
you
it
pay
still
respect
be
to more Jizo
more
statues.
attached.
Oh,
to it?
if you can.
As in, a bit like what we did in ICL where there was Pakistan team competition. Would you have maybe an Australian team? Which South African team as well. On top of the Indian side. So you might have even started with more teams. But yeah, I don't know what the end game of what this would be. But it's a fascinating kind of way of thinking about it. Thank you for the question. Sam says, would it be magic to say this for Sam's current on the back? Test it. No, we'll get into the video. That is where his England test career, his England career started overall, and he has a knack for picking up the ball wicket in his leadership for the competitive stage. He still plays Red Bull for Surrey. I wouldn't even hate him getting back to the have I taken this? The only problem I would have, and you know, I would have to go through all the numbers quite carefully. Is he still the wicket taking option? And the reason I bring that up is it feels to me that he's fundamentally changed as a player. been changing as a bowler. I'm not sure he has the sort of high upside bowling that he had once upon a time. Now that he's not the first guy to go through this, obviously. We've had a couple of other left armers also go from traditional sort of swing bowlers to this sort of more bowlers, and they're just like really play a lot so last year, yeah, he really hasn't. Like, he hasn't played more than 5 Red Bull games in a year. Not a lot of them. So that's I think that's up until that point, probably averaging what, mid to late 70s, mid to late 20s. Good healthy bowling average. And since then, his bowling average has gone down. That batting average has gone up slightly. So some of that is what we will do. Sometimes it gets a little bit of a bump. But that is a bit of a concern because I think you have to. He has to bat at number 7. He's got 34. So if he can keep that at 28 to 30, he then has to be bowling at a position where he takes his based on this, I have questions about that. But as I said, I'm looking at, 6 years of data and 25 games. But you can understand why he makes sense from that perspective, which is why you're bringing it up, Sam, and, it's why I'm you also said, how do you assess each other? As a Sri Lankan, I've always said it in, no nonsense.
I'm a simple woman samurai. I have no poems or mysteries to give you.
But it's used with
All my
rappers,
style
both
offers
reviews,
is
many other
this.
points.
60 years at the tip of the blade. 60 years spent
I've had
making
trouble
war
finding
on
your
those
father.
who would ravage the lands I steward. Will you accept what I have to teach?
So we just did a show on the best number 3s, and I predicted the best number 3s, which I think is out. I'm pretty sure it's out, and he's on the list. His record is number 3 is phenomenal, and he also a lot of the reasons but I could when people think of what a number 3 should be, it's each. I think if you look. Oh, okay. Oh, that's it. So he retired like early. But yeah, he probably retired a little bit early. Partly because he wasn't getting paid. He was playing club cricket. Like final club was probably. So I would assume I mean, if you do some book, he's a very straightforward figure. But I mean, you're talking about I asked him about since right. And I had to peel back to get him to talk about that. Because he starts with the personality. So when you say he's no nonsense, he is no nonsense. He will say what he thinks. But also, because he has these so many personal, he's such a genius. and I don't say that much, you really need to think about cricket. Sometimes it's actually hard to get into about cricket. It's not from the other. And I think that there's issues. I do really best on the pretty good play the game. The overall record is fantastic. His record is number 3. I think we've probably brought a couple of really good years this year, and then I think that helped. But for something not to be. But yeah, it's a fascinating guy. I worked with him at Cricket Vogue. We didn't do a lot together. Very, very similar. He's very prickly as a person. I don't think anyone would say he's not. I remember one day I had to go up and get him we need to see something recorded. I just think no one saw that. It's so broken. But this has got nothing to do with it. I'm just telling you. Then there was another time I ripped something I really liked, and he went out of my way to drink, took me to a bar, and it's probably the one time that I had with him where I didn't have to break down through that sort of personality, that incredible personality he has, because my piece had done that, and so he just wanted to talk about how I got to the point where I wrote this piece, and so it's probably the only time, like, and I've many projects, it's probably the only time I have a conversation. Even if you go back and you look at the other batting, it's really good interviews that I did. You get great stuff. The Bill Laurie stuff was really interesting. Completely reframed the way I looked at Bill Laurie. But also, like it was something I said early on. And so then I had to let lean back over, and I think he is that kind of person. There are some good highlights. I'm trying to think of the innings. There's some really good highlights of him in early ODI cricket, where actually probably would have, he obviously missed ODI cricket, and he's an older player for the public. I wonder if ODI cricket might have been his best. Not because he didn't have the skills for Test cricket, but just because he naturally wanted to put a stamp on the game, and I think that's sort of... If you look at Ian Chappell, I don't think he's as talented as but I think the way that they bat it is very similar. Not from a technical point of view as much, but from a... Actually, some things are technical point of view. But from a... I am batting in order to change the game now. Kev says, where did English League cricket get all its money from when the likes of Sogus was playing in it? And how is there more money in it than county cricket? Doesn't seem to make sense. So there wasn't more money in it than county cricket. But don't forget, they're not paying every single player. And also, county cricket is a development system, right? So you've got younger players coming through, you might have a second 11 team, I wouldn't have had academies or anything, but it's very different. All you're trying to do in a club really is, I know you might have taken certain force, but really what you're trying to do is make sure that you have one key overseas player to bring to the crowd, then you've one or two very strong local players. The average player is at cricket, and you're also looking at clubs where because you don't have brands, you don't get staff. All you really need is a functioning bar and someone to bring people through the bar. And that's what a lot of those clubs do. I would assume, and I'm not an expert on this at all, but I would assume that also some of those clubs had benefactors. So I would compare this to Aussie rules football in Victoria, where a lot of my friends who bring the AFL players who didn't quite make it, they ended up making a lot of money playing in country towns. Right? And we would have got bigger crowds at our local games than they would. Right? And so I could never work out why. Like, the Epic Football Club during its heyday would get like 2,500 in. And I've been to a lot of those country crowds. They have 500 to 1,000. Like, are those people drinking at such a level that they're making more money for the club? And that wasn't what was happening. Generally, what was happening is that a local benefactor who loved the club was putting money in to bring people up so that the club was strong. So I have a friend who I did some film work with, who his family ring. So they basically pay a lot of people to come in and play professionally at football stuff, right? Free for people. I would assume some of those similar things are happening in this smaller league. But I'm not an expert exactly on that. But it's incredible. And I'm going to the guy who writes the kids book. There's a guy who's done hits and stuff. And yeah, there's a writer who Scott Oliver. That's the big episode, Scott. Scott Oliver has done a lot of those stories, but it's absolutely fascinating. I remember actually before Scott Oliver, someone else did a couple of short stories. There was like one great one about this guy who made. I want to say it was Shogun now, but it may not have been Shogun. But it was one of the one of the great fast bowlers who wasn't in county cricket, played at least that game. This guy made 100. And it was like this legend of the club that this guy made 100. And someone back in the interview, everyone bowled in the game. They might have even interviewed West Indies as well. I can't remember. They certainly interviewed them. Turns out it's and they've got this thing in basketball, probably the closest that we find, where they have those sort of pro-Emmy games, where they'll be probably having them towards the end of summer, where you get like a player like Bones Hyland, who's like, from the start. But he'll be playing in a gym with like a bunch of kids, and he'll still make it. And like LeBron's playing in these games. Aaron Gordon is playing, Trey Young is playing, like proper NBA players, right, as well. And it's sort of a little bit more casual than everything else, but we actually had that in about 1930. I mean, it happened before 1930 as well, but we basically had it between 1930 and 1980. You could actually end up playing against one of the world's best cricketers in a club game. $1,000 a year, like heaps of them, right? So many of the West Indians did as well. You had the New Zealanders would go over and do it. South Africans would go over and do it. Occasionally, some really good Australians. Like even up until the 90s, 80s, and 90s, you had like Gilchrist and Shane Warne playing club cricket, right? But they weren't at the peak of the powers. But that's still something that's happening. But just like 10 to 15 years before that, you had these players playing against club cricketers for their wage, right? Like up until maybe the mid-70s, it's pretty common for that to have happened, right? There's I think I might have told the story out of batting about Sobers playing a game where he's actually playing for a county club. Because he had a club contract at the time, which he loved, but he was like, I want to be paid more, I want to play game of cricket. And so he went over. And maybe the most famous version of this is Sidney Barnes, right? Who, he's maybe the only English player who just went, why would I play tennis cricket when I can get more playing? Manan says, a lot of ways to see test cricket evolving in the next 5 to 10 years. How will it affect the leagues of players? For example, how do we look at Stark once the pink ball test becomes mainstream? I mean, Stark's kind of changing that narrative on his own, just by being so much better with the red ball now. But yes, I get your general point. I think Tim Wigmore was the first person that I really had a conversation with like, I was talking about some stuff. He was like, yeah, but that's not WTC, right? And so we're already at a point now where tests are not meaning what they used to do. Right. that now we are individually looking at players based on how they can. That's already a good thing. Players' legacies start to be shaped by what they do in WTC final. Again, another great thing that I'm 100% for. And I think the last 5 to 10 years and the next 5 to 10 years are going to be it's part of the reason that we are calling it Tony does it and give it as well. I do think there is an aspect of that would be the most important. Are they good everywhere? So I think that's what we're trying to do. You still need to be a great, even if you're not a great chess player in your era, but you will also be good for everything. That's the difference. Zach says, how much do you have back that the University Bash have on the channel since the time? To widen the gap in ability, quality, and intelligence to the teams them. Yeah, so what happens is, England is the first team to give out winning contracts. So Australia and England had, they like publicity contracts, marketing contracts maybe. So you could be an Australian women's cricketer or an English women's cricketer, and I think that New Zealand had something to do. And your job was maybe a little bit coaching, maybe go around to schools, do some photo ops and everything. And you got paid that. Everyone knew you were kind of being paid to play cricket, but you weren't actually contractually. So, I knew people who were on those contracts. And not just that, sometimes they would go out of their way to get you jobs in other places as well. So I think, I want to say Chance to Shine was a place, there was a lot of women's cricketers working at Chance to Shine on stage in the UK. A lot of cricket boards in Australia had women on their staff, but with the acceptance that anytime they had to go off to play a game, they would go off. So pseudo-professional at that point. That's 2007, 2014. That's my understanding of the country. England then professionalised by bringing in actual contracts for you to play cricket and be paid to play cricket, which is obviously what we happened. And Australia, very soon after that, create this huge thing. So what happened with England is very similar to what happened with newfound professional sport places. When you suddenly professionalise, you end up with like 15 people on 20 people. And it means you create this culture where it's actually very hard for anyone else to penetrate that. So if the original 20 players, some lose form, some get older, some have injury niggles that mean they're not good. You don't actually have to play someone to replace them. So what Australia does by having the Women's Big Bash is it's 40 to 60 professionals, right? Now, these are not professional, right? I think when Women's Big Bash first started, I think the Aussie Rules competition started at the same time, and you had probably number 3. Yes, from the 2012 team. I always thought she was incredible talent. She was playing in Women's Big Bash and playing what they told me in AFL at the same time. And there were plenty of other women who had that as their job and had a secondary job. But it meant that for at least 2 to 3 months of the year, they were training and teaching like professionals. And then even outside of that, they had access to their state, training facilities, the way they had before. And so you're talking about a 5-year gap between them and every other country. And even now, most countries doesn't have and so there was this huge boom, and they were already the best team, right? They were already at least in the top 3 pretty consistently. And then they had this big boom, and the money has got better as well. So it has worked pretty well. Right? It is a huge part in why they are, Then on top of that, they also get all the
I'm
advantage
here to cut you.
other teams get, which is so Australian players are seen as the best players. They're more likely to get a franchise contract because they get some professional role. It just keeps doing it. But I've said before, if you look at the history of cricket, the vast majority of the time, the team professional contracts advantage over. So if you look at the three best cricket teams that we've ever had, the Australian men's team, the West Indian team, 76 and 5, and the Australian men's team. Most of that, in all three of those cases, comes from a level of professional. That means that you have something fully accessible, you have all the time, that they play full thing for a lot of how is that their plan? So basically, you've only got bowlers who can bowl and you've only got batters. I kind of think in that situation, having that many bowlers probably doesn't help. Whereas I kind of think if you give the ball to Lara they find a way to get out through the very back. And so they are probably more useful to that situation. Once you get over 5 bowlers, it's actually even harder to use, right? So I'm going with batters. Very rare. You say conditions dependent. I'm not sure if the conditions matter all that much. Because let's say it's a green seam, then I don't know who your team is. But like, if it's a green seamer and you've got a Raj and say and you can say Ricky Ponting on a green seamer against that quality of batting, I kind of assume he's green seamer. Right? Because he's going up against basically club level batting. And I've seen Ricky Ponting, when he was young, he could actually bowl. So, I'm going to take batters in every situation, in that particular. Johnson says, I've been reading more than a game by John Major. Cricket's rapid evolution in the late 18th and early 20th century is stagnant. Starting to think about how the game is translated to if you were dropping one batter raised ball, which is potentially adjusted to every needing defensive bowling, into the most competitive batsman in 10, what may be the outcome will be surprised. I think by 1910, the pitches drawn are pretty simple. So, yes, obviously in the last 115 years, 16 and 6, they have a little bit flatter and a little bit tougher, right? But I think if you were playing on a test pitch in 1910, it's probably more like a really well kept club ground would be my guess. And so I don't think there will be any issues with those players. I think they will be sort of that. I think the period that dropping modern players would be the trickiest for them is the 1850s to 1880s. They've got to face underarm bowling, which sounds simple, but they are not used to facing, and those guys got really good at bowling it because that's what they do. They have, and then they have to do that on wickets that are just completely unpredictable. So I think if you're going to take cricket back to the period where they would struggle, I think that's the period where they're very, very confused about what to do. Having said that, you're still probably facing guys bowling around 60 or 80 miles an hour. I mean, I've been friendly to say 80 miles an hour, but let's say there was a couple of guys that could get it up to 75, right? So then it's like playing on a bad club pitch. I am here. Is going to be phenomenal, right? Like, people are going to be bold with things. But again, how does they monetize? They've never seen it before, and it's yes, I didn't really cover it. I'm trying to work out how to frame it. That's a piece kind of in my head. The fact that we are creating it. We created this business to build a game. But even if we're at holiness, you did. In the other major. You need to get an army. Right? Which doesn't and so and so again it doesn't there's disconnect here. ICC have decided to protect the truth. So they potentially have to it's not by accident, you see. They have set it up very specifically. And it's another situation of which we are not actually the people who are making this happen. Do not get any benefit. Right? And I don't really understand. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens in Pakistan over the next couple of years because it's not like they can go to the ICC, which is run by largely by Indian interests now, which link directly back to the BJP and say they want more money. But at the same time, they do have a card, and we saw that in the previous World Cup as well, right? They are actually now holding one card, but it's a Trump card, not one. Green said, who is the skillful express pass bowler of the consistently called I don't know, like, where do you put, like, so that was one of our companies drop off. Bolts. All of them can roll at that base, or have bolts at that base. So yeah, that's the example of guys, when we talk about consistency. There aren't many goals in history for anything consistently. That's why I'm under care about because of the I wonder if Alan McDonald would be in this conversation as well, but there's been just a different play. That he would be the other one I would think of. I would think of Alan McDonald, I would think of Brett Lee, but I would have to explain his work. Craig says, why does the ICC treat the ODO World Cup like a fluid to get rid of? They were already looking at 2023 as being a month of serving plans for that 2021. It costs more money, and the broadcasters have already asked for the T20 World Cup to be made to come in. Sponsors and others keep doing things as well. It's not got doesn't exactly the thing that's held back in regard is that the generation of the generation but then cricket was kind of always seen secondary to cricket. And then from 95 to 10, if you you do that period, and they could maybe not the bar as far as the bar. Welcome to you. When they could don't think at the moment. I think at the moment it's like because they can switch it over. They can get a bang. Yeah, you do efficient of like no one really knows what to do. Test them and us. Not so actually for series. He'll go up. Today she's already gone up. Mendes was it as well. Right at the moment it's probably Glenn Phillips. But I won't be there that much. Number 7 actually falls threes, but I think a number 7 is a limited player who's good at getting but I think there's another player that's the table for you. He probably develops into certain situations. Leave for me! And I think he's that kind of guy. Then actually can't do everything. But there are certain things he does in the back. That's right? And that's I think the false thing, it depends on where you're going with the sort of false. But I would say that sort of Bethel Green are probably higher in value. But we have seen some sort of players management so there might be a link between the two. We've got this big which kind of it's just therapy. I don't know if you're aware, but it's me. Herbst is the 100 format going on. I heard a lot about it being here, and just a justification that it would walk the vitality class. I definitely vitality class they thought they were pioneering something. They felt like they made things everyone else to do. And they thought, we can make it better. I don't think anything better. Okay. There's a couple of like that I like. The things dramatically, people don't have lots of I like the practical model in a room thing, like from a tactical point of view, like that's work. Yeah. I would be happy to kick things with them. But I think in the future it probably needs to be. Now that it's again, like sponsorship side of things, financial. No, I think if you go back, look at the. I would say this: we've been pretty lucky. I don't think we've ever had sponsorship. Oh, we might have done like 5 episodes. Back in the day. I had a sponsorship with
Mike Wilson.
Studying. It's really disappointing. Most advertising, when you break it down, is a product that we probably don't need. That we're being sold in a given and that's why they're like if your product is and everyone needs look at where it advertising. And so that's where I look at any advertising. Anywhere that I see it, right? Anytime I see advertising, it's like, okay, and then put it. And you know, cricket, very specifically, cricket is in a position of as the world's second leading sport, larger than the back of cigarettes. When there was a smoking ban this was just very commonly out there that sports was suffering. What happens is someone it's usually a girl. Beer and soft again, they're not, maybe you can argue whether they're better or worse, but they're not good things, right? So, if you look at, I'm talking about Australia, cigarettes, beer, yeah. The majority of these things. Now let's go to England. They're one fun, right? Cigarettes. Then it becomes so they're not even they're great
This is my chance.
You get to the point where what's the next thing that's going to happen? I think there was one kind of thing that accepted the deal with the company. Don't know that actually. You can tell you that what is the candidate for meeting with the company. And then get a little bit too late for the company at that point. But so when the big financial institutions, they went to crypto. So I don't know how other people look at these financial institutions.
I'll look into that.
So
Like your
financial
master.
institutions and then crypto. That's always been. And you go through something where it's even like you've got what companies probably don't industries that are edge of I don't know if it's easy, you know. that is what happens in sports advertising. And every country has a different kind of pattern to it. But once you can break the pattern, it's like you can almost see what the next thing is going to be. PJ says, which historical cricketing truth do you think future historians and content creators will look at? I don't know, if I knew that, I think I'd just write it now, PJ. I remember writing a lot about the whole Wickkeepers can't captain thing. When MSOU was coming through. And getting so much blowback to it that I just think now that it's very rare that it would ever be wrong. I think that's just how society like, at a certain point, we hadn't had any solution captain. So we had them in first place. So we actually knew that it would work. And I think sometimes you just need it to happen in other
I cannot see my future.
if you ask me what do I think is most interesting, and I think it's been breaking over the last 5 minutes, how can we say that we have a World Cup if we're not providing
I must not make noise.
a huge percentage of teams who play it? And specifically, how can we say that it is okay at the World Cup if we are fixing
He is a good
every
sport.
time in a way that no other sport would allow? And I think that we just accept that as a thing that has to happen. I can't imagine it should happen. What's an example of cricketing fake news that people who just run with and now too late to change anyone's mind? I mean, I would say man cutting, but man cutting has slowly started to be
That was worth the wait.
that would definitely be one off the top of my head. That's very hard to convince people of for a very long time. The history of man cutting is really fascinating. It's not, that's not actually how it works, right? When it first starts, it's not even seen negatively universally by Australian media members and the Australian team, and they're the ones being man cashed. But yeah, that's probably one that is curious. I wonder what benefit of the doubt will be in the future. Why does benefit of the doubt have to go to balance? That might be another one. Ken says, is the new ODI World Cup format too much stupid all time? And because associates identify qualifiers for certain format things. I don't know if it's the most stupid ODI format we've had. Probably 2019. 2023 is that. But 2019 would be the one off the top of my head, which is like, wait, what? Now we got this far into the project and we're regressing with the another thing. So yeah, I've definitely had that quite low down. And then yeah, the associates. It's really tough to do associates because what they would love to do is go and be fun. But they also don't want to be in a situation where they're learning or stuff or whatever. But yeah, it is a betrayal. It's a betrayal of the fact that we said that. Sir! And this goes back to the previous. It was at that point, we were talking about if we when I started my career, every time I read about this, despite the fact we didn't really had
Oh!
despite that, we were told this, that I and you're like, okay, that doesn't actually matter if they're like if they're winning games, they're already doing what they need to do to you, right? And then separate to that, we did, I think, at a certain point, because it's a private members club, say that the associates had to go off. if anyone's been into this group for the last 5 years, there's no one who's going to be 50 people. They get what's asked, and the fact that we find new ways to fuck them over, says that we are still stuck in the same mindset that started the ICC. Right? That imperial bullshit mindset of like, this is messed up, you have to earn it. And then once you've earned it, you can get it for the rest of your life, no matter how shit you are. Not how sport works. We've got to stop thinking about that they can do they have 11 men or women who want to wear whites and represent their country? They've earned testaments. That's how it works. It's okay for us to say it's a shit testament. It's okay for us to be like, we're not going to do that as an status. But they've earned testaments. Reese says, if the art batting next time, you look at all format players for one day into no, I've got. I went to coach, but I've obviously gal bowling. So that'll be that. Then there will be. Then someone else is doing a book. And they're very but I have another. I have a third book. Best at players.
Next time will be better.
Bob says football's been shown to have a special racial power to pay players performance, whereas licensing players that does a similar license and different. My gut feeling is that yeah, it is. I think it is much more complicated. I mean, Frank Warren was seen as a really good tactical captain, and then Clive Lloyd comes up. So you have two of the first ever Black West Indian captains who were both seen as very tactical. And I think that even at the time, he probably wasn't given the respect that he deserved. But George Headley was seen as someone who was seeing the game in a way that no one else was seeing it, right? Probably different than someone like Sobers, who was seen as just the most freakish, athlete of all time. But yeah, it does go different to football and American sport, which I do think.
Oh wow, check you out! You look like someone who's up for a challenge. And have I got a challenge for you?
Although looking at their teams, I think it does, but I don't know as much about them. But when you're a young, a black cricketer in South Africa, you quite athletic, you push through the ball. And
wait, am I muted? Everything looks good on my end.
There is a bit of a vibe.
Hi, my name is... Nope. I'm not going to make it easy for those Abstergo price to track me. You can call me Mom. Soon, obviously. But a dark animus can be dangerous, and the Assassin Brotherhood wants you to have a place where you can sharpen your skills. Or, just show off a little. So, I've added a bunch of modifications. Oh god, I heard it too, I'm so sorry. To the simulation. The result is a virtual training program / combat challenge. I call them domains. To access my domains, you're gonna need some tokens. I see you've already looted some tokens. I love that you came prepared. Tokens are digital keys that will take you out of the Japan simulation and generate one of my custom domains. Now check this out. Ta-da! This nifty piece of software is called a gateway. It takes you into the domain and keeps you hidden from Ego's monitoring subroutines. Go on, touch it.
But yeah, so there are certainly biases. I don't think there's someone who's followed basketball. I always find basketball really interesting. If you look at world basketball, the NBA, there's like players from Serbia. There is a.
Oh shit, this one!
There are like one-off players.
Pretty much just funneled all my anger into it. It was very cathartic for me. Maybe not so much for you. Have fun in the Red Moon domain. Every domain has the same set of goals. Find and kill the domain dice show. Then head to the arena for an epic boss fight. The modifier changes each time, making every attempt unique. It's tough, but you're tougher. Now show me what you got.
And I think if you look traditionally is that they actually would have done that. They could have gone, okay, for Croatia and Serbia, most of them keep going to Croatia. And they probably missed Germany. Then Spain got really big, maybe because they saw it, right? And so suddenly you get a bunch of, Spanish players, right? And that is not a bias that is racially prejudiced, or even ethnically prejudiced. When you see one group of people, and it's the way that our brains are made to work. This is why bias is exists, right? When you see a group of people in one area, it's easier for you to go, well, I'll keep going to that area and attack that, than it is to go to...
Every domain has the same set of goals. Find and kill the domain dice show. Then head to the arena for an epic boss fight. The modifier changes each time, making every attempt unique.
Right?
It's tough, but you're tougher.
I'm not saying they're
Now show me what you got.
Play, but if you were, and that's from a simple reason, it's probably more likely. Yeah. So Latvia is. Just up here, Estonia, here, Russia, and so Lithuania and Poland, probably Slovakia, Croatia, that sort of and so probably going to areas when you look. But what happens now is you end up in a situation where you're actually confirming your bias because you keep going back to the same place. There's actually, right across Europe, there's going to be a player who's really good for Trump. And so, what you actually want to be able to do is go, we can't just keep going back to the same place. But that is not the way our brains work, right? And so, one of the most interesting ones I've ever heard.
Every domain has the same set of goals. Find and kill the domain dice show. Then head to the arena for an epic boss fight. The modifier changes each time, making every attempt unique. It's tough, but you're tougher. Now show me what you got.
But it got to the point where they had a really talented young black player played in those positions. As they got into the upper end of high school or college, they would often be pushed into the positions of which they black. And it's the same with the white guys. If you had a really talented young white player who was talking about, he would then be pushed to the positions of white players. Right? And that's the bit that you need to stop. And that's the bit you need to notice. This is not a cricket thing. This is how society is. This is the way our brains are done. There's so much for us to process at any one time. We clump it, right? We make it easier for ourselves. But those biases are eventually also what hold us back. The shortcuts that we need are the things that sometimes we need to look at. So I'm sure there's more than I just mentioned in cricket, but they exist within cricket. What exists in cricket, if you were a young player with height, Herb says, can you please explain to me slap graphics are the primary broadcast evidence we keep it up. Do websites or TikTok get okay. I can very, very basic. You will generally have right? I don't know if they do it. I have no position for it. But definitely like a little but that's an ICC score I want to get on team-based score, right? I don't think teams probably can check. But traditionally those scores though only exist really in that word and on the scoreboard and for whoever. Everyone else kind of has their own scoreboard. So it's done by like companies like Opta, right? Producer, if you look at the convertment, the sacred cost of they would have like all up and score. And they would do and usually I think the score takes off the usually unless it's a big thing. That is then the then I have I would say he's probably close. Quite often different official leagues.
That's one dice show taken care of.
And I told him, well, that's not the secret. I think we have two different versions. I don't know. Like, without going through this speech and then assuming, like, I just, this is why these things happen. You then have different, you know, obviously the ACS then has something separate again. But them in Producer, I think, might have Jack Wolf systems there. Like, different for Producer. Can't remember if it's the case, but traditional things like that. Producer might have more balls than Fruit Class has, so they might have better strike rates for certain players, or different strike rates for certain players than everybody else. The RCC doesn't have any of that data, or not. You then got Charles Davis, the incredible statistician from Melbourne, I think he's who has probably more than anyone, and you know, and yet he's not part of any official scoring packages that I'm aware of, unless he's got some jobs recently. He deserves a big pay for the work he does to project. Like Charles Davis has done is incredible finding his own scorecards, plotting them back out, and do have information, and also going for the good side and looking at the so yeah, so we have him, and we then have, let's say it's BBC will take it from how many different then you've got people like Aaron Saxon, obviously but he was doing something for a while, done some stuff like that as well. So you have all these different places together. Every company that has cricket on their channel is either doing their own scoring or buying implementations. Opta, I said before, but there's like 7 or 8 of these companies now. Most of which will be companies as well. So when we're doing it for combos, thank you. We're in the middle of coming up with all these things. We will probably have to get the data extremely when we start now. but eventually we'll probably do a freaking concert or something. Hiring a bunch of students. But we might do it, we might not, we might just bring the dollar in as well. Well, we're more redesign. So my theory is really haven't changed. I'm also happy to have that. But I just think there's a lot of information that we can get to very, very quickly. And that's what we ain't trying to do. Right? So I would rather us spend our time on that than I would be going out and hiring a bunch of schools. Alex says, I've heard you saying the cricket is the best way to make less or what? But other than maybe 5 leagues, it doesn't seem to be much for leagues. How can other balls make money if they don't learn that? So my question to you, Ali, are they making money? You're the same. Are they making I think we get that we have this what if they get a lot of money and stuff, and then eventually stop trying to copy what other countries are doing, including politics. Start working. And I think that would be my very, very IPL. And the issue really is I don't know why they exist. Alright, that is the end of those chats. We go to chat. Jessica. Cheers. Jail. He goes down. Can't wait to see my parents there. He has a lot of doing the great shit. I'm not going to do it. I am, in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff with the box at the moment. And probably the I'm not going to
My mind is
I really like the Darwin get some things happening up there and people actually go in the right direction. And I think it's very, very cool that lands back to those terrifying that happen. So it's very good things to cricket now and then. But yeah, definitely not something I trust for at the moment. What we want to do in Dropbox eventually, and if you have a look at we'll give the idea of the guys that we'd love to do that. And Darwin is doing plenty of things where it's like, great cricket going out there, finishes. Well, So we would definitely love to do stuff like that. But yeah, we're not, hopefully. Says, what's your take on the recent India tour of fire in England? I'm not going to pretend like I've taken I've watched bits and pieces. That looks like a bit of a confused side. Maybe like probably that's probably my main takeaway. And yeah, because the World Championship should have 70s unfair to both teams. I don't think it's unfair to both teams. Like as in, you could then argue that it should have quarterfinals too, right? You can argue it should only have a final, or you could argue that the team who just goes on top automatically wins it. These are all fair things to have. I think if it's a test match series, I think it would make more sense to have semi-finals. I also think that the final should be a best of 3. And I don't think they're ever going to be able to do that. I just don't think they'll have the time to do it. It's already... But there's a million things. They said, I think that's the courage generation beneath Gambia could be with courage. I think if you compare Steph Curry to Hong Kong, I think the big difference is that before Steph Curry existed, Reggie Miller, Steph Curry talked a lot about how he could get old footage of Steph Curry to work out, the best way to execute systems. And if you look at the Pacers specifically in play, they actually played a very Golden State Warriors style of basketball around one guy having a plan. Okay? And then sometimes 2 guys as well. So there was already a template for that. And then you had to work that out and build it. You don't have to do any of it. He opens the bat. And he goes out there and he hits the ball really hard. You don't have to change your team plan. You don't have to change anything about it. Because let's just say he just continues to go. He might win you 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 games just by that. So I just why you would need a next level coach, right? Unless Gambia is actually actively humble, like tells him to start nudging or gets in his head or something. I think the best thing to do at the moment is, okay, what do you do well? What do you think we should work on? How do you think anything from anything differently? Like try and come up with a conversational style with him so that, this doesn't matter if you're Gambia or any of that, right? Any coach should be just saying, okay, here's the things we're concerned about. Are you concerned about those? No? Okay, let's move them to the side when it comes to the issue. We just want you to play the exact same way you play. And I don't think that's quite the same with the Steph Curry thing. With Steph Curry, you needed to go back and be like, actually, we can run the offense this way. So Davidson he played for, like, we can run it even better than Davidson did. We can run it around with the motion because that causes gravitational pull. Once you have gravitational pull, there's always going to be an open sport for us. Right? And so I think that in any direction that you have to go, I think there is something quite fascinating with that. I don't know if that's what you do with Suribachi. The Suribachi comp will be, let's say it's not Suribachi coming through, let's say it's a 16-year-old Gaffer, 19-year-old Gaffer, she's coming through. I think then you need the great coach. You're like, okay, he's got all this raw talent, we know how he's going to go, but how do we best use him, how do we best grow him and everything else? Not sure you need to do that with an open bat. That's kind of the genius of open bat, right? Go out there and do your thing. Look at me! Or whatever. You can do that when the battle gets tough. But let's not fuck with what works. You can go out there and whack the ball. Cricket.com, fantastic. I just saw you go calling me. Quite fascinating. So many players like full skill growth and everything stuff. Yeah, it's something that I think about quite a lot with a player like there are just certain players who, for whatever reason, become the person of their era. And I don't think there's another way of putting it. He's not going to go necessarily through I think at all time unless all formats are a bit of a bigger deal. But I don't think he's going to go down. And yet, we're all going to be sitting here in 30 years time doing playing things. You don't get it. Right? There's a reason why the camera kept going back to this. Eagle is doing possible. Yeah, whether it's aura, whether it's personality, whatever it may be, there is something about it. Shoot up why do you rate Circle 7? What do you rate Circle 7 there, which is about that color? What do you do? So where is he? Where is he? Yeah, I got Circle 7. And I rated him at 9 because I think the other players better test. And so if you want those three specifically, I think Gaviscard is the best player at spin that has ever existed. So 50% of the balls you place against him are against spin. If you're the best player ever against spin, I think you're still really good against face, as he was. He's probably at the very least, probably a very, very good player against face for a low level break against face today. And the best player at spin of all time. I think, he has to be up there. I think when it comes to batting between him and Callis had to bat on much tougher wickets where Paul was consistently doing stuff. So didn't have to do that. Callis had to bat on much tougher batting as well. There's not much between them. I probably have. I don't know, Cat's fine. Yeah. So they're and they're basically in the same team. So I'd probably go Sober over Callis from the perspective of if I needed to win a game in a session, I could go with Sober, right? But if I needed to win a game in a session, Viv Richards, who's the largest player of playing baseball, incredibly good. Also, so I have Viv Richards. There are things about certain record things where one is the declaration. The other is every other good person that he's mentioned in that list that's in the way. Yeah, we get it. He's all right. Obviously, my list is about 50 great tests. Like, he played in one of the most difficult teams and he came in at it was a dream position. Now, as you talk about in the book, he was fantastic. But yeah, that's where he is for me. I think my rating on him we had him at 9, so almost exactly on right. So if you want to say the fifth best batter of all time, I don't have a huge idea. Say the top best batter of all time, I was going to have a huge idea. That's what we have. Really good enough to come up with players. What's random I saw South Africa and West Indies earlier. Ricky Jacobs. That's a trouble. You never get this again. pretty good crowd. I mean, they're yeah, we will. You know, South Africa, West Indies, it's a different size now than it was at that point. I think we need to do something. Australia. And then we started getting a lot of international prize from other things. So cricket has and it's become a different kind of thing. I'd say it's less about Australia getting international prize from cricket and more about getting it to the table. The West Indies is going through similar kinds of beats and changes in the way they do this. You still get big crowds. Trinidad, Barbados, Australia. You still have big crowds. I don't know if you're going to see that. I love really big crowds. That's what's hot. And True Cut says, is there a case where we're ahead of the few drops? We looked at Mark War a lot. We didn't think he would make it, but we did. We knew we were doing the thing that stops Mark War from being a great player, you know, overall, is quite simply the fact that he never had any big sports. He never goes beyond the 150, and he doesn't actually get that many go out there. And so he played a fantastic in South Africa. Yeah, Port Elizabeth. So Australia, there's during that period where Australia was like really iffy about chasers. And it was a low scoring game. Australia made 108 in the first innings. And he needed 207 and second to score. And he makes 116. But a classic Mark War style, he goes out when they need 13 more runs to win. 12 more runs. And there's an element of, with Mark War, of like, he's never there for the biggest moments, even in the days when he's up. I think he should have averaged 48 and 50. His average, we took this up. His first class average is ridiculous. Where is it? He averages 52 in first class cricket, and a lot of that is not pumped up by like counties, right? He plays it. But a lot of that is also, he was probably the best, I think it's probably the best first class batter I saw in Australia. And then in Test cricket, he didn't ever consistently get to that level. And a lot of it is that he doesn't get hit 200 to 250, 300. That's the other side of his talent gets. I would say Warner has a special case because attacking openers are just so much more important than I think almost any other kind of cricketer. Right? Any other kind of batter, I should say, bowlers and all-rounders are probably have higher. But I would have attacking openers that high, the ability of them to change the game like that. And I would also then say that, of course, he didn't make any overseas, so he's the confusing player. Clark is a confusing player because it takes it forever to work out who does the 5 years, and then he does. So maybe if he's back to go, he has 2 or 3 years, but again, it doesn't make any overseas. I don't think there's a world where I'd say these guys are massively far apart. I don't know if I'm any of them ahead of the others, but yeah, I don't think there's a position where they're that good. So I guess Steve Smith back in the ODI World Cup. I've not heard that. I would assume that is going to be the case. Maybe actually 2021 is a long way away. I would assume that Steve Smith will be fired. But I suppose it depends on whether he finds him. They said, if you see Vibe for attachments with the waste attachment to the King Fund up. So we need a top coach to Vibe to dominate World Cup. You should dominate World Cup for that group. I don't think there was any I just don't think you had carrying through. You know, this is the thing. Any that's a single job. A great, incredible outlier banter whereas doesn't move, which have these, right? But if you're us, you need to approach World Cup. Like in the next 15 years, India should dominate World Cup. The least thing to say, the action coach. I don't say irrelevant because of but if you did have
Are we down against boss?
I said this will definitely go to job. I said I don't think he's a good coach. I definitely would have picked him. But if Ollie ends up with the reason is that he needs to and so we all thought Red Bull was going to be a bit tricky. What we were like, and on that note, we will end this wagon wheel. Big thanks to everyone for tuning in. Great super chats at the end there. Thank you to everyone who's heaps of people for today. So thank you to all of you and of course our Patreon as well. That's it for this week. We'll see you again. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of this community that's been for this, head over now. Yeah.